Saints fans and Hootats from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley here with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. And we have special guest again, Mr. Jim Mora Jr. How you doing, Coach?
Fantastic. Now that I'm with the Hoodat Nation, how you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Getting ready. I mean, April, 29th is coming up pretty fast.
Yeah, a lot of changes in New Orleans and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those changes early on. What's your first takes on? I know we talked about the quarterback change and everything, but how do you feel Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton have done thus far to be able to get the team under the cap?
And they've done an amazing job. They really have. And it was not an easy task. They had a lot of work to do, and they got the work done. And, you know, they did a great job of getting key players re-signed, restructuring contracts. Obviously, there's a culture there that players want to be a part of. They're willing to take maybe a little bit of a home team discount to stay with Mickey, to stay with Sean, to be in that environment, to live in that city. And I think that they've done a good job. It's obvious that they have a plan. It's obvious that they work well together. It's obvious that they share the same vision for that team. And when those things are in alignment, then you've got a chance to always reload rather than rebuild. And I know that's what Mickey's attitude is, and we know for sure that's Sean's attitude. Sean's never going to accept losing, and it's one of the great things about the New Orleans Saints at this point in time.
Yeah, and you know what? I couldn't agree more with what you said. You know, Kyle and I have been playing damage control in Hoodat Nation all off season, trying to tell people, you know, relax. In my opinion, this is still a playoff caliber roster. But you know, as you look over the Saints roster, how do you feel about it in terms of is this a Super Bowl contender, playoff contender?
Well, I think it's a playoff contender. I mean, I think so much remains to be seen about quarterback. You know, this is such a major transition from Drew Brees, who's been the face of that franchise along with Sean for so long, has had so much success, has had such a great impact, not only on that team and that franchise, but that city. And now all of a sudden we're kind of stepping into the unknown. And there's a lot to be learned. And I can't say it's all going to be smooth sailing. It's not. But I would say this to people that are worried. It's okay to be worried. It's not going to be the same team. You don't have Drew Brees. You can't count on him. But you've got a head coach who's a master. And he's going to adapt that offense and adapt that team to fit the skill set of the quarterbacks that he's going to use. And I'm sure he'll use two again. So it won't look the same, but that doesn't mean it won't be as effective. There will be some hurdles they have to get over. There'll be some stumbling blocks, but I think they've got the men in place, and I think they've got the organizational structure in place and the vision in place to remain a contender at all times. And I'll tell you what, once you get to the playoffs, man, anything can happen.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about how the team can possibly move forward to get to the playoffs. Let's start with the NFL draft. Based upon the current needs of the New Orleans Saints, have you pinpointed any extra or have gained any further insight on what you believe the Saints should target, possibly the first round or the second round?
You know, they've got 5 of the top 133 picks, so they're going to get 5 good players. My eyes are going bad on me, so I have to put these on to look at my notes here. But I think, you know, wide receiver, I think linebacker, those are positions they can add to. I think always being concerned with your offensive line is a factor. You got to add to your defense. I think there's a couple of quality defensive back type players that could help them. Anytime you can add speed. And I think at some point in the draft, you know, maybe a quarterback, you know, maybe someone that fits the profile of what Sean's looking for. It's, you know, I was going through some of these names and trying to think about how they would fit into a Saints style of offense. And I tell you what, one name became very intriguing to me, and that was Ian Book out of Notre Dame. And let me tell you why. Number one, he's a winner. You know, he's the winningest starting quarterback in Notre Dame history, and they've had some pretty darn good ones. Mm-hmm. Number two, he has that mobility that Sean likes, to be able to throw from the pocket and move in the pocket, get out of the pocket. He's not a big guy. He's got a little bit shorter stature. Sean's used to dealing with that with Drew Brees. I think Ian's a smart guy. Now, there's some inconsistency in his play. That's why he's not one of the top-ranked guys. But I think there's some traits there and some intangibles that they could work with, and he might be a guy that they're able to get, in that third round at 98 or 105. Maybe they take a chance there. There's some other guys. I like Kyle Trask. I like Davis Mills. I like Felipe Franks. These aren't those guys you're hearing about every single day, but they're players that are good players. You got Jamie. God darn my.
Did we freeze?
Coach. Let's see if we can bring Coach back into the stream. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I think he froze up on us there.
He did certainly bring up some intriguing names. I've been hearing some stuff about Ian Book from Notre Dame too. Interesting, a developmental project to be sure, but such a smart kid. You and I have been hearing a lot in recent days about Kyle Trask. We also know that the Saints have interest in Jamie Newman, that they talked to him a couple times very early in the process. Any of those guys, Book. That's the first time when Coach said that he could be available on round 3, I was thinking day 3 for Ian Book. But we always know that NFL teams overdraft quarterbacks. That's why we could see Kyle Trask sneak into the early part of the second round, or even late on that first night.
Yeah, look, if you ever seen Book play, he's a gamer.
Yeah,
and I like what I saw in the kid, being able to bring those guys from behind on a number of occasions. I like Kyle Trask. He has that grit to him as well. He's a fiery young guy. So those are good, talented people. Look, man, and also that kid Bradley Davis, I believe, is somebody that they should consider. He has a good, strong arm, tall guy, very mobile as well. So those are some potentials there for the New Orleans Saints. But Bob, when you look at the draft and look at what's happening in New Orleans, I know there's still a lot of concern. People know the unfortunate situation, what's going on with Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. Don't believe the Saints are going to give up a draft pick to be able to get Teddy. But it was interesting. I put up a poll, and the poll was, which quarterback battle would they like to see during training camp? Would it be Teddy versus Jameis, Jameis versus Taysom, or Teddy versus Taysom? And overwhelmingly, it was in favor of Jameis going against Teddy. Teddy is beloved. We all know he's 5-0. He did his due diligence in filling the role for Drew Brees, but man, I gotta say this. I feel bad for him because I don't think they really gave him the opportunity to excel.
Nope.
Why is that, Bob? I mean, one and done after signing the contract. I know he wasn't the current GM's guy, but as a coach, I would have thought Rule and Joe Brady, since they were on board getting him into Carolina, would have been on board in keeping him.
Yeah, and that's what's surprising. Yeah, listen, when you have a change at coach, especially, and to a lesser extent general manager, they usually want their own guys in, and I completely understand that. But as you just pointed out, the thing is, at least as far as I know, Carolina had already hired Rule before they signed Teddy Bridgewater. So yeah, in theory, Teddy should have been his guy. Now, rare will you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback in the top 6, top 8 of the draft. So you certainly, when you have that chance, you need to kick all tires and look into all possibilities. But in this day and age of the NFL, to give up on a young quarterback so quickly, and now that we have Coach back in, I want to ask him about one of his guys. to give up on a quarterback so quickly. The Jets did it, booted Sam Darnold after 2 years. Carolina giving up on Teddy Bridgewater after a year. Arizona, grabbing Kyler Murray, who I think is going to be a really, really good player. But Coach, welcome back to us. Perfect segue. What's up with your guy? Your guy in college at UCLA, Josh Rosen. Why hasn't he been given a chance to succeed at the NFL level?
Well, he has been given a chance to succeed. He's been given multiple chances to succeed, in my opinion. He was a first-round draft pick. He was given a chance in Arizona. Now, he didn't have a great offensive line, but they decided they needed to replace him with a first-round draft pick and Kyler Murray. He was given a chance in Miami. Not only did they bring a veteran in Fitzmagic, but then they drafted Tua. He moved on to Tampa on the practice squad, and now he's in San Francisco where they're going to draft another first-rounder. So he's been given the chances. Unfortunately, because of whatever reason, it hasn't worked out for him. And I think he would have to accept some responsibility there. When you've bounced to 4 different teams in 3 years, it's not necessarily about the team. I think you have to take a real deep look inside yourself. Was he always in a perfect position to succeed? No. And there were some struggles at Arizona, offensive line. There were some struggles at Miami. But that being said, if you show promise, if you show the right attitude, if you show the right work ethic, if you show the arm talent, if you show the ability to lead, if you show the ability to make plays, if you show the commitment, if you show the personality, teams are going to stick with you. They're not going to move on the way that they have. So, this is a profession where, yes, we are quick to move on, but we're not quick to move on without the facts, without conviction. If you recognize talent in a player, you stick with that player. You try to mine that talent, cultivate that talent, because it can help you win. If you see redeeming qualities, you try to develop those redeeming qualities. So I don't think that's unique at the quarterback position or unique to Josh Rosen at all. I think that's just the way this league operates.
Okay, let's talk about conviction. Being inside of the NFL war room, very few people have had that privilege, right? From an outsider's point of view. Talk about the scenario. The Saints are choosing at number 28 for the first round. Now, they have the opportunity to either move up, they can stay pat, or they could be able to move down and possibly gain some added draft capital, right? Do you believe this is the type of draft that it would possibly be better for them to stay pat or move down versus moving up and giving up a potential first rounder or another high round draft choice?
It all depends on the conviction they have on the players on their board when it comes time to make that decision. And it's so fluid, as you guys know. You can have the best laid plans, and then somebody makes a pick in front of you that changes everything that you're thinking, whether they pass on a guy that you never thought would be there when maybe you're in a position where you could move up and pick, or as you get to your pick, there's 5 or 6 players that you go, man, we'd be perfectly happy with any of these guys. We're going to stay put and we're going to take them. Or let's say there's 5 players on your board and you're 2 picks away from your pick, and someone calls and says, hey, we want to move up to your spot and we're going to give you an additional pick late. And you go, well, okay, that's great, but if I lose one of these 5 players, I'm not going to be happy. But the chances are that if I move back, I'm still going to get one of these guys that I value. I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to move back. I'm going to pick up a pick, and I'm still going to get this player that I wanted. And those are the discussions and scenarios that are going on in the draft rooms across the country right now. All of what if this happens, what if that happens, ifs, ands, or buts, different scenarios. I mean, they're being played out over hours and hours and hours. So you're not just evaluating players and setting your board. You're going through every scenario that could potentially happen in the first couple rounds that will affect your draft position and who you may choose.
Good
Coach,
stuff.
you came this close to throwing a woulda, coulda, shoulda out at us.
I know.
I thought you were going to do it for me.
I don't know if my dad would have appreciated the woulda, coulda, shoulda. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're sitting here saying woulda, coulda, shoulda, and they're over there with the win. That was the 49ers game when we missed the field goal. And everyone said, well, we almost beat them. We could have beat them. And you know what? What's great about that, I hope you guys remember, right after that, we went on a win streak and finally had a winning season and went to the playoffs. And I think it was that that standard my dad said of close playoffs, close. Close doesn't count. I'm not trying to get close. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I think he said that don't mean S. So
yeah. Oh, one time he said, was it diddly squat or something like that?
Diddly squat or diddly poo, whatever it was. He was talking to the media, yeah. So it was a beauty. But anyway.
Well, good stuff. All right. I know you have to leave us.
Gotta jump.
Any last words, advice, if you were advising Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis right now?
I would advise Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis to never listen to my advice and to follow what they think is right. They're champions.
Okay. All right. Good stuff.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, Coach.
Happy belated Easter to you.
Thank you. You guys too. Take care. And hi to everyone in Louisiana. Love you all. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. That's Coach Jim Mora Jr., man. Good stuff. Good stuff as always, Bob. Let's continue talking for a few minutes amongst the two of us. Let's talk about this cornerback situation. I know we dropped some thoughts about it initially after Marshawn had the little run-in with the law up in Cleveland. Right now, the cornerback situation still seems to be a high priority position, in my opinion. Also, the linebacker situation. Now, I threw out a couple of scenarios this morning in an article about the New Orleans Saints will select at 28, who. People want J.C. Horn, dynamic young player, and you do as well. Patrick Surtain is there, and you have the kid Farley, and you have the kid Newsome. Mm-hmm. I really like his skill set.
Me too.
But also you have Asante Samuel Jr. Now you have out of those 5 young men, and I think the young kid out of UCF, I really like the way he plays coverage as well. Aaron Robinson. Okay.
Yes.
Now, Surtain may be unattainable based upon his draft value, right? And right now, the way J.C. Horn is shooting up the draft boards, he may be unattainable as well. Or is he? What could the Saints do to be able to get into a position to acquire a J.C. Horn or a Newsome or a Farley?
And like you said, we all expect Patrick Surtain to be the first cornerback off the board. He could go in the top 10. J.C. Horn, because of his offseason workouts and people looking closer at his game tape, along with Caleb Farley's back issue, Horn has taken over the consensus number 2 spot. So for New Orleans to get either one of those guys, in my opinion, they need to move within the top 12 or 13 of the draft. Maybe even higher. But I think if you get up to pick 12 or 13, you have a pretty good chance that at least Horn, if not both Horn and Surtain, will be available. We know that the Saints are ultra aggressive when it comes to moving up, especially once they identify a player that they want, not only in the first round, but any of the rounds for that matter. And J.C. Horn, man, he is such a great fit. I like him as a player. I think he has a higher upside than Surtain. I'm a big Patrick Surtain fan too. But to be able to move up that high, as you know, and as you pointed out, you need to find a trade partner too. And you don't want to completely mortgage your future. Granted, this roster is still very talented, younger than a lot of people realize. So you can afford to give up some draft picks to move up, whether it's for a quarterback or a position of need, whatever the case may be. But if you can't find a trade partner to move up to the spot where you need to get a guy like Horn or Surtain, I think you'd still have to trade up, not quite as high, for a guy like Newsome, maybe even Farley.
Right.
Probably 15 to 22 is the sweet spot for both of those guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the draft.
Bring me away.
I think these guys are going to have to possibly give up a number 1 in the future, plus probably a number 2 or number 3 in this year's draft as well, if they want to do that. Because a team really, how you say, they got you by the balls, so to speak, and there's nothing else you can really do if you really want to jump up into those different slots, So I don't see how the Saints are going to be able to do it. I think it makes more sense, in my opinion, if a draft trade partner comes up to you and say, I would like to get into that number 28 slot.
It does. It does. And there is some depth. And the fact that the Saints need a cornerback, for example, there is a lot of good depth in this class, in my opinion, where you can find some quality starters, even well into round 2 and perhaps round 3.
Right.
We've never seen the Saints trade back in the 19 years that Sean Payton has been in charge, along with Mickey Loomis. But there's a first time for everything, and we know the other needs that the team has. So you're right. Oftentimes we do see a team trade back late into the first round, around where the Saints are picking at 28. And if New Orleans can pick up maybe another second round pick in this year's draft, second or third round, along with an extra first rounder this year, well, now you're talking, say that scenario plays out like you just pointed out. Someone moves in, wants the Saints spot at 28, offers New Orleans a second or third round pick this year and a first round next year. So, okay, you have now a couple extra picks for first round next year, and you now have 2 picks in this year's second. You have a second, 2 thirds, along with another second or third. So you still have the same number of picks in the first 104, 105 selections, like Coach Mora just pointed out, where you could still get quality value at cornerback. There's a few linebackers that I think could be potential starters that'll come off the board in rounds 2 or 3, and a few defensive tackles I really like, along with some of the quarterback names that Coach just dropped to us. An Ian Book, a Kyle Trask who could drop, a Jamie Newman. All those guys are going to go in the second or third rounds, and now you have an extra pick to play around with to do that, while you can still grab a guy like Aaron Robinson, Eric Stokes, Asante Samuel, or a guy I really like too, Elijah Molden, blast from the New Orleans past also. So I think if the Saints were to trade down, I would not dislike that move at all.
Yeah. And check this out. We know this, that the Saints need a linebacker. Mm-hmm. They need somebody who has speed and tackling ability. Now, I know Jeff Ireland and the Saints have met with Moses at Alabama. They met with the young man over at Tulsa. They met with the TCU product as well, right? Mm-hmm. Wallow. And he's a native New Orleans. You know, he's from the metro New Orleans area. All those guys are, in my opinion, good. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they're good fits for the Saints. Okay? Hear me out. If we saw the type of person that excels alongside a Batman, Mr. Demario Davis, right? You have to be fast. You have to be sideline to sideline like he is. You have to be able to tackle, but you also have to do what?
Cover.
Thank you. That was the liability of Alex Anzalone, right? Yep. His coverage ability, and you saw it so prevalent against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he couldn't even cover Leonard Fournette. Okay? All right. So here's some names. Cox out of LSU. Jammin Davis. Man, that's a cool name. Jammin Davis out of University of Kentucky. What's your thoughts?
I like Davis a lot. He's been rising up the draft boards. Some mocks even have him going in the first round. I can't see that necessarily. I think he'll go in the second, or perhaps even the third. And a guy that I have been huge on from the start is Chaz Surratt. Also a very cool name.
Yeah, I like him too.
North Carolina. So yeah, if you can get a Surratt in the second round, you could probably get a Jamin Davis in the second round. Jabril Cox is also going to go second or third round.
High second round, I believe. Yeah.
What's that?
I think he should go high second round.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Jamin Davis has what, 4.3 speed at linebacker. Oh my gosh. Think what we can do with him, man. He could be one of those hybrid type of players between linebacker as well as safety, right? So I think all in all, man, there's got to be either a consensus saying that the Saints need to go corner, number one. If not, what can we drop back and find those second and third rounds, and who's going to give up those necessary picks in order for us to get the type of valued player that we could be able to key on and immediately come in and make an impact for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, and Coach sort of alluded to that exact fact when he was saying, look, if the best 4 or 5 players on your draft board are still available when you're in the Saints case, once it gets to around pick 24, 25 is when they're going to start really fielding trade offers. And you're positive that you can move down 10 or 12 picks and still get at least one of those guys. I think you have to start considering that possibility.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Now, I was listening to Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller on Sirius XM, and Kerwin believes, he used to be a GM at one time, right? He believes that the defensive tackle group is not as abundant like some people may think it is. And he only sees probably 4 potential guys that can really come in and be able to make an impact. The rest of the group are more developmental type of players. What's your opinion?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I will say that I am not overly impressed at the top of the interior defensive line draft class. I do like Barmore from Alabama, and he's a surefire first-round pick. I've actually seen him tumble to the Saints in a couple mock drafts. But as far as developmental guys, I think that that's a little bit of an overstatement. When you and I had talked to Coach a few weeks back, he keyed us in on I'll just say his first name, Osa, from UCLA. And I've watched some of his tape. He needs to add some strength on the interior, but he's an inside-outside guy, a lot like Mario Edwards was for New Orleans a couple years back. Yeah. Tommy Togai from Ohio State. He would fill that same role, a big run stuffer in the middle, just like they lost in Malcolm Brown. I did a draft profile through us yesterday on Aleem McNeil from NC State. I really for a big man, he's got such tremendous explosion at the snap. Tyler Shelvin is another run stopper in the form of a Malcolm Brown type of player from LSU. And I really like Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech. He's a guy.
I love that pick. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think he's a good third or a lower third, 4th round type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to find any Aaron Donalds in this class, but you are going to be able to find a guy like David Onyemata, where you look at your draft board and you look at some of these tackles and you say, that fits what I want to do inside right now. Another guy I like is Jalen Twyman from Pitt, and Darius Stills from West Virginia are 2 guys to keep an eye on as you get towards the end of day 2, perhaps even early in day 3. So, yeah, I really think that you can find some quality guys that will be immediate contributors. They're not going to be all pros necessarily right out of the gate. But as far when someone says a developmental guy to me, that tells me that you don't believe he's going to contribute right away. Those guys that I just named, I think, can step into a certain system and be a contributor, be a solid part of a rotation right away. And that's all New Orleans would really need at that position right now.
Good stuff. All right, Bob, a lot of people like to talk about the skill players. Of course, you got the wide receivers, you have the running backs, you have the guys who bring the excitement to the game. I think there's some good valued wide receivers, third round, fourth round guys. I think there are some good valued receivers maybe going into the 6th and 7th round as well. But let's talk about running back. You have a guy like Mike Carter. If you have a guy like Sermon out there, third round, late third round, early fourth round, do you pass?
No, I don't think you do. Especially if you've managed to fill a couple of those defensive needs that we just mentioned. If you get your cornerback, if you get your linebacker, and you feel confident in your quarterback situation, at least for 2021, with Jameis and Taysom, we know that Sean Payton likes his offensive toys, especially running backs. Look, Alvin Kamara isn't going anywhere, nor should he. But Latavius Murray has still got a contract situation that we need to be very aware of going forward.
Yes.
We know they like Ty Montgomery, and they re-signed him, which I think was a great move. That in itself gives them a little bit of flexibility with Murray. But if a guy like Trey Sermon, a real pounder in between the tackles, or Kylan Hill, same kind of thing, only he's a good pass receiver, or Michael Carter is a tremendous pass receiver.
Mm-hmm.
If a guy like that becomes available to you and you really like him, I do think you pull the trigger on him. And then you move on. And I love Latavius Murray. I always have. But then you can move on from Murray and save yourself about $8 million in cap space before by June 1st, where you can go out and sign one of these remaining free agent guys at another position to fill a need that you haven't been able to do so up to this point because you're right up against the cap.
Great point, man. I really love what you said about how the Saints may be positioning this, because a lot of people remember before the Saints were able to get under the cap, listed Murray as a possible cap casualty, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in a position where you still could possibly save some money, or you still could be able to work with the player and try to restructure some of his deal, or you could be able to find somebody in the draft process that you really like. I don't know if Sean Payton wants to entrust the football to somebody who could be hit or miss, right? But you have to really look at the dollars and cents and what makes sense for the New Orleans Saints in the long haul. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And look, we know, and we've heard it from John Hendricks, who has who covers the team for us on nearly a day-to-day basis, that Sean Payton and those coaches really like that running back room that they have right now, and there is a lot to like. But we also know that that's not going to stop Sean Payton if a running back is out there that he likes. That's not going to stop Sean from pulling the trigger on it. It's not going to be in the first or second round, but you get towards the end of round 3, or one of those day 3 picks, or perhaps even an unrestricted or undrafted free agent. We've seen the Saints have a ton of success at the running back position in that area. Pierre Thomas, Chris Ivory, Kyrie Robinson, to a lesser extent, Travaris Cadet and Marcus Murphy. All those guys were undrafted that made immediate contributions for the Saints. So even if we get into day 3, and we've seen the Saints do some wheeling and dealing in the last few years in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, if a guy is still on the board that they had valued as, say, a 3rd round pick, and they decide to let him go because they wanted to fill another need, they'll make a trade back to get a running back or a wide receiver that could potentially fall. Yeah,
and we cannot forget Notre Dame's Tony Jones Jr. is still on the roster for the New Orleans Saints as well. All right, Bob, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Folks, thank you so much for everything that you do for Kyle, myself, John, Brendan, all of our staff. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for Bob Rose. Over on Twitter, I am at BobbyR2613. And if you are a Facebook connoisseur, then I certainly hope that you are already a member of our Bayou Blitz Facebook group and Facebook page. But if you aren't, seek out Kyle or myself on Facebook, and we'll get you hooked up. It's a real channeled Facebook group. It's obviously New Orleans Saints related, but it's real user friendly. Everybody has a voice in there, and there's a lot of good, solid, clean-hearted fun and debates on there.
Good stuff. I'm Kyle Mosley. You can follow me on Twitter at KTMOZE, and you can follow us at Saints News on Twitter, Facebook, as well as on Instagram. Stay tuned. We'll have more coverage of the NFL draft with John Hendricks, Bob Rose, myself, Brendan Borland, as well as Mike Detillier is coming out with his draft Bible. So you can always go to MikeDetillier.com and pick up a copy of his coveted draft Bible. I'm Kyle T. Mosley. Again, have a great evening.